The text message popped up on my phone seconds before I walked into my parents' house. Don't ruin this for me tonight. It was from my sister, Jolene. I had no clue what she meant until I stepped into the dining room and saw her sitting at the head of the table, a glass of champagne already waiting for her. My spot, the one I'd sat in since childhood, was gone. Something was very wrong, and I was about to find out just how wrong. The whole setup screamed ambush. Crystal flutes I'd never seen before. My mom's Thanksgiving-only china. Champagne chilling in a bucket like we were at some fancy New Year's party. My dad beaming like the proud father of the bride. Only there was no wedding, no celebration that I knew of. Just my sister, sitting smugly at the head seat, her elbows propped on the table like she owned the place. I hadn't even finished setting down my purse when Jolene leaned back and dropped her little bomb. So, next week I'll be moving into your house, she announced, like she was telling me she'd switched shampoo brands. I froze, my water glass halfway to my lips. Excuse me. She grinned at my parents before turning back to me. Yeah, just until I get back on my feet. You know, save on rent. I've already started packing. My father popped the cork dramatically, the fizz echoing in the silence that followed her words. He poured her champagne first, as if she'd just accomplished something great. My mother watched me carefully, lips pressed into that fake smile she uses when she knows she's about to corner me. You're serious? I said slowly, setting the glass down. Of course she's serious, my dad chimed in, raising his glass. To new beginnings. Everyone clinked their flutes. Everyone except me. And suddenly, everything clicked. The tubs I'd seen stacked in my garage last week labeled Jolene's winter clothes. The Pinterest board I'd accidentally stumbled on that morning titled Jolene's new room. The hushed phone call I overheard Mom making about how I was too lonely in that big house. I wasn't invited to dinner. I was invited to a takeover. The fury in my chest rose so quickly I thought I might choke on it. I reached for the manila envelope in my purse, the one I almost left in the car, thinking tonight wasn't the right time. But if my family was going to stage this circus, then I'd bring my own fireworks. I slid the envelope onto the table. Actually, I said, my voice sharper than I intended, I have news too. My mother's smile flickered. My father's forehead wrinkled. Jolene arched one perfect eyebrow, clearly annoyed that her spotlight was being stolen. What kind of news? My mom asked, her voice low, warning. I opened the envelope and pulled out the papers. I sold my house last week. I'll be moving out in 30 days. The silence was instant. Then crash. Jolene's champagne flute slipped from her hand and shattered on the hardwood floor. You what? She gasped, her face pale. Dad jumped in, his voice booming. You can cancel that. There's always a grace period on these things. You can't possibly sell without discussing it with us. I stared at him, incredulous. Discuss it with you? It's my house. Correction. My mom cut in, her tone icy. It was your house. And you're not thinking about how this affects your family. Jolene needs a place. We already promised her. Promised her. My blood ran hot. So that's what this is. You were planning to move her in behind my back. Aunt Cheryl, sitting at the far end of the table, decided to add her 2 cents. We were going to move her stuff next Tuesday while you were at work, just to make it easier. The betrayal hit me like a slap. My own parents, my sister, even my aunt. They were all in on it. You've lost your mind, Dad snapped. What about your property taxes? Who's been helping you with those, huh? You think you can manage without me? There it was. His once-a-year help dangled like a leash. Mom's voice dropped into her condescending, worried parent tone. Evelyn, honey, this isn't like you. Selling a home impulsively? It makes me wonder if you're even taking care of yourself. Maybe you need help. The gaslighting was almost laughable. I bit back the urge to scream. You did this on purpose. Jolene shouted suddenly, tears springing to her eyes. You knew I needed a place and you sold your house just to spite me. And in that moment, I realized it didn't matter what I said or how many reasons I gave. In their eyes, I would always be the villain for putting my own needs first. I stacked the papers neatly back into the envelope. I made this decision for myself. And it's final. The room erupted. Accusations, guilt trips, the same script I'd heard my whole life. But under the table, I felt a small squeeze on my hand. I glanced sideways. It was Dorothy, my mom's oldest friend, whispering so softly only I could hear. Good for you. And for the first time that night, I almost believed it. By the next morning, the fallout had already begun. My phone buzzed nonstop. Calls from relatives I hadn't spoken to in months. Uncle Ray, Cousin Melissa, even my dad's golf buddy, for crying out loud. All of them had the same tone, that slow, disappointed cadence reserved for someone who'd been caught stealing from the church basket. Evelyn, how could you do this to Jolene? She's family. You're leaving your sister homeless? You must be losing it. Nobody sells a house like that unless something's wrong. By noon, I stopped answering. By 2, I made the mistake of checking Facebook. At the top of my feed sat Jolene's latest masterpiece. The hardest lesson is realizing family isn't always there when you need them most. The post was dripping with self-pity, accompanied by a black and white selfie of her staring dramatically out a window. Within an hour, it had 50 likes, all from relatives and old neighbors. The comments nearly made me laugh. If I hadn't wanted to throw my phone through the wall. You deserve better, sweet girl. We're here for you, no matter what. And from my mother, always. We love you. Don't worry about anything. Not a single person asked about my side. Not one. By evening, the humiliation had spread outside the family. My co-worker, Lisa, cornered me at the office break room the next day, her voice hushed but dripping with judgment. I ran into your sister at Starbucks. She told me about the house. If you need help finding her temporary housing, my church has programs. My hand tightened around my coffee cup. Programs. Lisa nodded sympathetically, like I was the villain in a Lifetime movie. She said you blindsided her. Kicked her out without notice. I set the cup down before I shattered it. Jolene has an apartment. And parents. She's not homeless. She's manipulating all of you. Lisa's eyebrows rose, clearly skeptical. She looked pretty upset. I wanted to scream. Instead, I forced a smile. Thanks, Lisa. But she's fine. The second Lisa left, my phone buzzed again. A text from Jolene. If you don't want people thinking you're cruel, maybe stop being cruel. My jaw locked. I typed back with shaking hands. Stop lying to everyone about me. You know exactly why I sold the house. Her reply came instantly. You're destroying our family. Own it. The audacity nearly knocked the wind out of me. But just when I thought I'd seen it all, the doorbell rang that Saturday. Standing on my porch were my parents, Jolene, and, God help me, my aunt, uncle, and cousin. A full-blown intervention team. No warning. No courtesy call. Just a family firing squad on my doorstep. We need to talk, Dad said, already pushing past me. They filed into my half-packed living room, their faces grave, as if I were about to be admitted to rehab. Mom perched on the couch. Jolene clutched a tissue like she'd been rehearsing for Broadway. My Aunt Cheryl crossed her arms, ready to deliver the final judgment. Dad started the show. Evelyn, selling your house was reckless. But we're reasonable people. We've come up with a solution. My stomach sank. You can back out of the sale, Mom said sweetly, though her eyes were steel. Then Jolene can move in, just like we planned. We'll help cover the taxes if you let her stay. My laugh burst out before I could stop it. You mean you'll help her stay? Because this isn't about me at all, is it? Jolene sniffled, perfectly on cue. I can't believe you'd rather watch me on the street than let me stay in your big, empty house. On the street. I barked. You have a lease. And parents. And apparently an entire cheer squad backing you. Who here actually thinks she's homeless? Silence. No one moved. That's when I reached into the box by the table and pulled out a stack of documents I'd been saving. I spread them across the dining table like cards in a poker game. Bank statements. Contractor invoices. Repair bills with horrifying numbers circled in red. Roof replacement, $11,000. Waterline repair, $8,200. Heating system, $5,000. You want the truth? I sold my house because I couldn't bleed money anymore. Not because of Jolene. Because the house was swallowing me alive. I shoved the papers toward them. That's reality. But sure, let's keep pretending this is about saving your precious princess. My father's face darkened, but before he could speak, my uncle, stoic, judgmental Uncle Ray, cleared his throat. Jolene, he said, do you even have a job right now? The room froze. Jolene blinked, caught off guard. I'm looking. The market's hard. Ray leaned back, unimpressed. Seems to me Evelyn isn't the only one making bad decisions. The look on Jolene's face was priceless, like someone had just slapped her with a wet fish. For the first time in years, the spotlight shifted off me. And that's when I realized, maybe, just maybe, I wasn't going to play their villain forever. If I thought the family intervention was the worst of it, I was dead wrong. By Monday, my humiliation had gone public. I walked into the office break room, and 3 co-workers went silent mid-conversation, their eyes darting at me like I was some zoo exhibit. My stomach sank. Finally, one of them, Greg, blurted it out. So, your sister's GoFundMe? My what? He pulled out his phone and shoved the screen in my face. There it was. A full-blown sob story Jolene had cooked up. Homeless because of my sister's cruelty. Every dollar helps me rebuild. My jaw dropped. She'd even uploaded a picture of her suitcase on the sidewalk, staged, of course, in front of my parents' pristine front porch. The caption read, when your own blood kicks you out, where do you turn? The comments were brutal. What kind of monster does this to her sister? She looks so sweet. I hope karma finds the one who did this. And one that cut deep. If she's your sister, Evelyn, shame on you. She'd named me. Publicly. Rage boiled in my chest, so hot I could barely breathe. This is insane. She's not homeless. She has a lease. But sarcasm kicked in before the tears could. I smirked at Greg. Oh sure, poor Jolene. Stranded on the cruel suburban streets of Maplewood Drive with a soy latte in her hand. Greg raised his brows, but said nothing. Cowards. By lunchtime, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Old classmates I hadn't spoken to in years. Distant relatives. Even a neighbor I barely knew. Asking if Jolene could crash at my place until she recovered. Recovered from what? From living rent-free her whole life? I slammed my phone down so hard I thought the screen might crack. That's when I decided, no more hiding. That evening, I drove straight to my parents' house. My hands were shaking the whole way, but not from fear, from fury. When my mom opened the door, she looked startled. Evelyn, you could have called. Oh, I'm sorry. I shot back, stepping inside without waiting. Was I interrupting Jolene's photo shoot for her next pity post? Jolene appeared from the kitchen, phone in hand. Perfect timing. She actually had the nerve to roll her eyes. Don't be dramatic. People care about me. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. People care about you because you lied to them. You made a GoFundMe? You're raising money for a fake sob story while living in a 4-bedroom house with mom and dad. My dad stood up from the couch, his expression thunderous. That's enough, Evelyn. She's going through a hard time. A hard time. I snapped. She's weaponizing social media against her own family. Do you know she named me publicly? Do you realize strangers are calling me a monster? Jolene crossed her arms, fake tears glistening in her eyes. Maybe you should have thought about that before you sold your house out of spite. That word, spite, sent me over the edge. You think I sold my house to ruin your life? I barked, voice rising. Newsflash, the world doesn't revolve around you, Jolene. Not everything is some conspiracy against your little princess dreams. Her lip quivered, but the performance never faltered. You hate me. Admit it. I froze. Hate her? No. I hated what she did. I hated the years of favoritism, the manipulation, the way my parents always let her skate by while I worked myself into the ground. But before I could answer, a flash went off. I turned. My cousin Melissa, sitting silently in the corner until now, had her phone raised, recording. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered. She shrugged, smug. People deserve to see the truth. Truth. I exploded. You're recording me losing my mind because I'm sick of being exploited? Post that, Melissa. Post the whole ugly reality while you're at it. Like how mom and dad planned to move Jolene into my house without asking me. Or how she's been draining their wallets for years while I never took a cent. For the first time, mom's face cracked. Evelyn, stop. No. You stop. My voice shook, but I didn't care. I'm done being the villain in this family fairy tale. You all want a bad guy? Fine. But I'm not playing nice anymore. The room went dead silent. Only the faint hum of the refrigerator filled the space. I turned on my heel, grabbed the doorknob, and walked out. And as I slammed the door behind me, I heard Jolene's faint whisper, sharp, venomous, dripping with entitlement. She'll regret this. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure if she meant me or herself. The storm hit 3 days later. I was at work, buried in spreadsheets, when my phone started vibrating nonstop again. First a text from Lisa, are you okay? Then Greg, this is getting out of hand, Evelyn. Confused, I opened Facebook, and my jaw dropped. Jolene had organized a protest. A literal protest. Right outside my house. Photos flooded my feed. Jolene sitting on the curb with a cardboard sign that read, kicked out by my own sister, in bold black paint. Next to her, a couple of her friends, girls I vaguely remembered from high school, held up signs too. Family shouldn't be disposable, and justice for Jolene. But the worst part? People actually showed up. Neighbors. Random strangers. Even a reporter from the local news station. The caption under Jolene's post nearly made me choke. My sister Evelyn threw me out, sold our childhood home, and left me with nowhere to go. Today, I stand for everyone who's been betrayed by family. We deserve love, not cruelty. Childhood home. It was MY home. Bought with MY money. Jolene had never paid a single bill there in her life. I bolted from the office, my heart pounding. By the time I reached my street, I nearly crashed the car. The entire block was jammed with cars, people holding signs, camera crews filming interviews. My house looked like the epicenter of a scandal. And there, front and center, was Jolene, crying into a microphone. This house should have been my safe place, she sobbed, perfectly angled toward the camera. But my own sister doesn't care if I end up on the street. She only cares about herself. The crowd murmured with sympathy. Someone even booed when they saw me pull up. I slammed the car door and stormed through the crowd. Are you kidding me? I yelled. Get off my lawn. Gasps. Phones raised instantly. Oh, they were loving this. Jolene stood, wiping fake tears. Don't attack me, Evelyn. You've done enough already. Attack you? I laughed bitterly. You staged a circus outside MY house. And you're lying to these people. You're not homeless, Jolene. You're living with mom and dad. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. A few people muttered. But Jolene didn't flinch. She clasped her hands dramatically. See? This is what I've dealt with my whole life. Evelyn twisting the truth, trying to make me look weak. And then she pulled her final stunt. She pulled a lease agreement from her bag, held it up for the cameras. This was my apartment lease. Do you see this? Evicted because I couldn't pay after Evelyn refused to help me. She abandoned me. My stomach dropped. Evicted? That was the first I'd heard of it. My parents hadn't mentioned it. She'd never said a word. But the crowd didn't know that. To them, the piece of paper was all the proof they needed. That's when a new voice cut through the chaos. Actually, the man said, stepping forward, I'm her landlord. And that's not the truth. Everyone turned. A tall man in a blazer, early 40s, holding a folder. He looked furious. I'm Daniel, he announced to the crowd, eyes fixed on Jolene. Her landlord. She wasn't evicted. She abandoned her apartment. Left without notice. Didn't pay the last 2 months. And she tried to claim damages that didn't exist. The crowd erupted with murmurs. Phones zoomed in on him. Jolene's face drained of color. You're lying, she shrieked. Daniel pulled out a packet of papers and slapped them against the microphone stand. I have photos. I have the signed notice. You didn't get evicted. You ran away from responsibility, again. The crowd gasped. Some even laughed. A woman near me whispered, oh my God, she's a fraud. For once, Jolene had no rehearsed tears. She just stood there, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. I seized the moment. This is who you've all been defending. I shouted, my voice shaking but strong. My sister. The professional victim. The woman who weaponizes pity for likes, money, and attention. Cameras swung toward me. Dozens of eyes watched. For the first time, I didn't shrink. Here's the truth, I said, pointing at Jolene. I sold them my house because the repairs were drowning me. I didn't ask anyone for help. Not once. But she's been draining my family for years. And now she's draining all of you. Half the crowd fell silent. A few people lowered their signs. Someone muttered, figures. And then, in a move so insane I'll never forget it, Jolene grabbed the microphone out of the reporter's hand and screamed. You'll all regret turning on me. She's the liar. Not me. She hurled the microphone on the lawn, shoved past her own friends, and ran down the street, the cameras chasing her. The crowd stood stunned. Phones still recording. Faces wide-eyed. And all I could do was stand on my porch, shaking, my heart racing like a drum. Because this time, it wasn't just family drama. It was public. It was viral. And it wasn't going away anytime soon. The protest disaster went viral overnight. Clips of Jolene screaming into the microphone had racked up thousands of views online. Local bloggers were calling it Suburbia's Family Feud. People I didn't even know tagged me in comments. Team Evelyn or Evelyn is a monster. There was no middle ground. By Friday, I thought maybe things would die down. But then came the knock on my door. When I opened it, my father stood there, jaw tight, my mother clutching her purse like a lifeline, and Jolene hovering behind them in oversized sunglasses like she was a celebrity avoiding paparazzi. We need to talk, Dad growled. I almost laughed. What's left to say? Your golden child just humiliated herself in front of half the city. Mom's eyes darted nervously to the neighbors' houses. Not here. Inside. Against my better judgment, I let them in. The second the door shut, Dad's voice thundered. You've taken this too far, Evelyn. Do you have any idea how much damage you've caused? Your sister staged a protest, I snapped. With lies. And dragged strangers into our business. But sure, let's talk about my damage. Jolene ripped off her sunglasses, eyes blazing. You think you're better than me because you bought a house? Because you can pay bills? You're not perfect, Evelyn. You've got secrets too. I froze. What are you talking about? She smirked, pulling out her phone. Maybe the world would like to know who really paid for that house. Or did you forget the check Mom and Dad gave you? My stomach lurched. What check? Dad stiffened. Mom went pale. And suddenly, I understood. I'd spent 9 years believing I was the only one in the family who stood on her own 2 feet. That every dollar I scraped together, every overtime shift, every sacrifice, was mine alone. But Jolene's words cut through me like glass. There was never a check, I whispered. Mom's voice trembled. Evelyn, you weren't supposed to know. I blinked at her. Know what? Dad rubbed his forehead, sighing. We gave Jolene money for the down payment. Not you. The room tilted. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. What? Mom wrung her hands. She was supposed to buy first, but she wasn't ready. You were always more stable, so we thought, when the time came, you'd help her later. My hands shook. You mean to tell me, all this time, I believed I was the independent one, that I built this house on my own. And secretly, you gave her the down payment? You've been funneling money to her behind my back. Jolene's smile widened. Surprise. Rage surged through me, so hot I could barely breathe. So let me get this straight. You didn't help me. You let me kill myself with overtime and loans, while secretly stockpiling her money so she could swoop in and, what? Take my house later. Dad's voice hardened. It was always supposed to be her house, Evelyn. You were just holding it until she was ready. The words hit harder than any slap. Always her house. Never mind. 9 years of sacrifice. 9 years of scraped pennies, ramen dinners, canceled vacations. Also, I could hold a house for my sister? I laughed then. Bitter. Sharp. Ugly. Do you hear yourselves? You've been gaslighting me my entire adult life. Making me believe I was selfish, difficult, ungrateful. Meanwhile, you were grooming me to be Jolene's landlord until she decided to take what was hers. Mom's lip quivered. We only wanted to keep the family together. By lying to me, I shouted. By making me believe my only worth was what I could hand over to her. Jolene's eyes gleamed with triumph. Finally, the truth is out. You're not so special, Evelyn. You never were. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed the envelope of sale documents from the table and slammed it down in front of them. Well, guess what? That house is gone. Sold. Done. And I don't owe you, or her, anything anymore. My father's face twisted with rage. You ungrateful. No. I cut him off, my voice shaking the walls. Ungrateful as you. You had 2 daughters, and you chose one. You built her a safety net with my sweat. You made me believe I was alone while secretly planning my life around her failures. Well, I'm done playing your villain. I'm done being your pawn. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, from the hallway, another voice spoke. I knew it. We all turned. Dorothy, my mom's old friend, the one who had squeezed my hand at dinner, stood in the doorway, arms crossed. She'd let herself in with the spare key she still had. Her face was stone. You think Evelyn owes you loyalty? She doesn't owe you a damn thing. I've watched you coddle Jolene her entire life, while throwing Evelyn to the wolves. And now, finally, everyone sees the truth. The room cracked open with chaos. Mom crying, Dad shouting, Jolene screeching that Dorothy was just jealous. But my pulse hammered with something new. Not just anger. Not just betrayal. Clarity. For the first time, the family secret was out in the open. And now, nothing could ever go back to the way it was. The house meeting had ended in chaos. My parents left in tears. Jolene stormed out screaming. Dorothy stayed behind like a silent sentinel. But I knew this wasn't over. 2 days later, the real explosion came. I was sitting in my nearly empty living room, surrounded by half-packed boxes, when the pounding on my door started. Not a polite knock. A police knock. When I opened it, 2 uniformed officers stood there. And behind them, Jolene, arms crossed, smirking like a cat that had just swallowed a canary. Evelyn Cole, one officer asked. We've received a report of theft. My stomach flipped. What? Jolene stepped forward dramatically. She stole money from me. Thousands. I gave her cash for safekeeping years ago, and now she's refusing to return it. I almost laughed. Are you kidding me? But she wasn't. She handed the officer a folded piece of paper, a fake agreement scrawled in her handwriting, claiming I had borrowed $10,000 from her. The officer's face stayed neutral. Do you have proof this isn't true, ma'am? Proof. My mind raced. Jolene was pulling her last card, turning me into a criminal. I took a shaky breath. Yes, I do. I grabbed the folder Dorothy had urged me to prepare, the fortress of paperwork I'd built over the past year. Bank statements, contractor invoices, messages, and then the real grenade, the spreadsheet. Every dollar Mom and Dad had funneled into Jolene's life. Every bailout, every gift, totals circled in red. I shoved it toward the officers. This is the truth. If anyone's been stealing, it's her, from our parents, from me, from anyone gullible enough to believe her sob stories. She's raised money online with lies. She abandoned her apartment. She staged a protest. And now she's filing false reports because she can't stand that I won't let her drain me anymore. The officers glanced over the papers. Then, to my shock, Dorothy appeared in the doorway. She'd been stopping by daily to help me pack, and apparently, she'd heard the commotion. She crossed her arms. I'll vouch for every word she just said. I've watched Jolene manipulate this family for 20 years. Evelyn is the only one who's ever stood on her own 2 feet. The taller officer finally looked at Jolene. Ma'am, filing a false report is a crime. I suggest you think very carefully about your next step. The smirk slid off Jolene's face. She stammered something about just wanting what's fair before bolting down the driveway, her voice echoing. This isn't over. But for me it was. The officers left without another word. Dorothy squeezed my shoulder. She's unraveling, Evelyn. Everyone can see it now. And you? You're finally free. The final week passed in a blur. Movers came. The old house emptied. And when I closed the door for the last time, I didn't cry. I didn't mourn. I felt lighter. The townhouse downtown was small but bright, its windows opening onto the city instead of suffocating walls of family expectation. My first night there, I uncorked a cheap bottle of wine and sat cross-legged on the floor, no furniture yet, just me. And for the first time, silence didn't feel heavy. It felt like victory. A week later, something happened I didn't expect. At Sunday dinner, for the first time in decades, my parents didn't take Jolene's side. She arrived late, demanding attention as usual, but when she tried to start in on me, my dad actually cut her off. Enough, Jolene. We're not doing this anymore. My mom didn't speak, but she slid a casserole toward me first. Not her. Me. Jolene's face turned crimson. She shoved back her chair and stormed out without a word. The door slammed, dishes rattled, silence fell. I sat there stunned. My parents weren't perfect. God, they were far from it. But something had cracked in their perfect illusion. Maybe they were finally seeing what I had lived through my entire life. Later that night, I got a text from Jolene. Just 5 words. You'll regret this forever. I stared at the screen, my chest tight. But then, slowly, I smiled. Because for the first time, her threats didn't feel like chains. They felt like empty echoes. I was no longer her villain. No longer her keeper. No longer her pawn. And maybe the most shocking truth of all, I didn't regret it. Not one bit. As I packed away her last manipulative text, one thought burned through my mind. If you discovered your entire family had groomed you to sacrifice your life for a sibling, would you fight back like I did, or would you have stayed silent? That's the end of today's story. Did things turn out the way you thought, or were there some surprises along the way? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you haven't joined the community yet, now's the perfect time. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you're always the first to catch new stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next adventure.